Okay, so we're up to.
Tell Liner I do things for him. Don't worry.
You did what for me?
Did that for you.
What do you do? Oh, we recorded? Thank you.
We have in tomorrow's stop as Hashem something that really will support us in what we do to Naftali.
Ouch.
How is that?
Anyway,
how is that possible? Something that's going to support us, what we do to Naftali. How is that possible?
Yeah.
You'll see tomorrow's stop. What does that mean? How is it possible? What are you talking about?
I don't want to know what's the alternative.
He thinks with yeah.
You don't do it enough.
No. Well, you'll see in tomorrow's daf, David. You'll see exactly which Gemara. Yeah, you'll see. I think. Yeah.
Am I going to agree with it?
Nothing to you specifically, but it's what one Amira, what one Tana can say to another Tana. That's all.
Yaakov.
Yes.
Your halacha tweets Lagabe making milchik meals and shuas.
Yeah.
Before shir, is it basically recommended not to really be making milchik meals? I'm just curious. Like everyone does it.
Everybody does it. Yeah. It's
so
not.
Is that a minhag or that's just people being ignorant?
No, it's being ignorant because there's no difference between not ignorant. There's people have minhag to make milchik sudas, but there's no difference between Shavuos and Pesach and Sukkos.
The Mishnah Brura, I don't remember, says you're supposed John. Excuse me. Since we don't have kabbanas, you're supposed to eat what you like. That's what he says.
Yeah, but he also says you have to have meat. He says you have to have meat. The Mishnah Brura says you have to have meat.
I don't know why do you care about the minhag? If it's not based on halacha, it's a minhag shtus. So what do you?
No,
care?
You can't say a minhag shtus if so much of Klal Yisrael is eating dairy. You can't say.
So where did it come from? So where did it come from?
No, it can't. No. There's no difference between eating dairy meal on Shavuos than on Pesach and on Sukkot. Just there's a minhag to eat dairy for whatever for the way the Ramah says it with the shtei alechem. And because they couldn't eat flesh, whatever the reasons are. So there's an Indian.
I don't see that it's a mitzvah to eat milchik on Yom Tov. I don't see it says anywhere that it's a mitzvah.
It doesn't say it's a mitzvah. It's a minhag. It says it's a minhag. It's a minhag.
Okay, what?
It's too big. You don't see it.
So where did the minhag come? Still, we didn't answer. Where did the minhag come from?
Look in the Mishnah Brura and the Machab. They'll tell you where the minhag came from.
Learn the halacha. Say mitzvah lechol chalavi beyond the Shavuos. Show me that. Show it to me written like that. Something like that.
No, it doesn't say that. It says it's a minhag.
Okay, thank you. Minhag, yeah.
It says it's a minhag to eat dairy, and if you go with the Ramah, it's the minhag. The minhag is to eat the dairy and the meat in the same meal. That's really the way the Ramah makes it sound.
Right.
So there certainly is a minhag to eat dairy, but the lahalacha, see the Shulchan Aruch does not bring that you have to eat meat. He says yayin. Nowadays he does not. The mechaber svardim l'chara don't have to eat meat. Mishnah Brura says, but the Ashkenazim hold that you do have to eat meat. Right? Okay, whatever it is, but that's.
Would you say we should, if we're having milchigs, we should have our milchigs, have a l'chaim, and then have a piece of cold cuts after a little bit?
Make sure you have a l'chaim, Jesse. That's the most important.
The minute that we grew up with.
Base parents, Paskin. That's the most important thing on your
Uncle Moshe says you have to have it.
Yayin is definitely a chiyuv.
Yaakov, growing up, we never had milchiks. We had milchiks from the morning. We came home, we had kiddush, then we after davening. That's it.
Right. That's right. That's where it comes from. But anyways, there's no difference halachically between Shavuos having a milchik suda. Some people imagine having Pesach a milchik suda.
Now imagine making a siyum with milchiks hair on. No barbecue.
How about Peretz? How about a wedding milchiks?
Peretz, I'm trying to think how you put a lasagna on the grill.
Yeah. Or a chasana. You're right.
And you're going to get a good turnout to that siyum.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, women are going to somehow finish the daf.
That's right. Okay, let's go. We got people being nervous over here. Okay, so 6 lines down from the top. So again, we were discussing that whether women are allowed to, meaning if there's a chiyuv of a woman to marry a woman, can she marry a chalal? Kohen a chalal is an issur for a woman. It's definitely an issur for a kohen who's kosher to marry a chalala. It's the reverse, an assur. So we said, according to Rav, it's not an assur. There's no assur like that. So that's a wall. So Rav Papa v'Rav Huna. Yeah, we start with a little bit of story. Rav Papa v'Rav Huna b'reidu Rav Yeshua ikalu. It's not much of a story. Ikalu lehintzevu la'asri d'Ravidi baravin. Okay, so they traveled to this town to Ravidi, and they went to the town of Ravidi baravin. Bomi now, and they asked from him, "Huzaru ksheris linasi lepsulin aloi." Are kosher females allowed to marry psulin or not? Like our shaila that we're talking about, meaning again, a male kohen who's kosher is not allowed to marry a female kohen who's not kosher. What do you mean a female kohen who's not kosher? Her father married a grusha, or a kohen gadol married an almana, whatever it is. So that's for sure not allowed. What about her if she's kosher? Let's say she decides that she doesn't care, or maybe she's past having kids. She already has her kids. Her kids are fine kohanim. And now she says she fell in love with a chalala. She's 50 years old. She's not having any more kids. Is there an assur for her to marry a chalala? Right? So Amalu Rapapa to Nisur. Rapapa says we learned it. Assur yuchsin olami Bavel. Right? We had 10 yuchsin, that came up from Bavel. Right? When they came up with Ezra, they came up from Bavel, and there were 10 different categories of people: Kahanim, Leviim, Yisroelim, Chalalim, right? Kohanim that were Chalalim, Gerim, right? Charurim is avodim that were freed, Mamzerim, Nesinim, Shtuki v'Asufi. So Shtuki and Asufi is we don't really know. You don't know who the father is, right? So Shtuki is the father you don't know, and Asufi is we don't know. He doesn't know either one of his parents, right? An abandoned kid. So those are the 10. So Kehanim, Levim, Yisraelim, Mutarim, Lavi, Zebazeh. They're allowed to marry each other. Leviim, Yisraelim, Chalalim, Gerim, Charurim. So Leviim and the Yisraelim and the freed slaves and the Gerim, Charurim, Mutarim, Lavi, Zebazeh. They're allowed to marry each other, right? But they can't marry Kehanim. That's the main point here was the Gerim and the Charurim are not allowed to marry Kehanim. Gerei, Charuri, Umamzeri, Nesini, Shtuki, Vasufi, Mutarim, Lavi, Zebazeh. Right, so the Gerim and the Charurim and the Mamzerim, those are all allowed to, they're not considered part of the Kahal, and therefore they're all allowed to marry each other. The Ilo, Kahanas L'chalal like Katani, but in this whole mix, it doesn't say that a female Kayan is allowed to marry a Chalal, right? It doesn't differentiate, it just says Kahanim are not allowed to marry Chalal.
This is going both ways. This is only one way.
What do you mean?
It was going both ways, but you can marry each other. This is a
so you're saying it goes both ways. You're saying
Chalal maybe to marry.
No, he's saying it doesn't say that, it doesn't allow it. So l'chayra,
because it's
both
male,
ways.
female, male.
That's right.
We
so
know that a male can't marry a female chalal.
Correct. So, but what about a female?
That's why it's not listed here. It's only one way.
But it should, if it's going to be allowed, then it should list it.
So the mission is only listed both ways. To get in.
Well, the Gemara sort of gives what you answer. I'm not sure if that's what you're saying. So I'm a little Huna Breder of Yeshua. Kol Heifta Dahani Nispi Mehani. Anytime that you have them, these can marry these, right? Meaning the men can marry the women. Bahani Nisbi Mehani. And the woman can marry the men. Katani Kayan. Katani, I'm sorry, it says. Right? Kayan, but the Kayan, keep it the Ilu Boy Lamits of Chalala, but a Kayan, if he wants to marry a Chalala Asira, it's also to him, like Katani. Right? So that the Mishnah is not talking about. Right? Meaning, so we're saying that Chalalim are not allowed to, Chalalim, we wanted to say Chalalim are not allowed to, otherwise the Mishnah would have said that they're allowed to. Right? But now we're saying, no, they are allowed to. So why didn't you say it? Right? Because it's only talking about, like Naftali said, right? They're only saying what's heter is if it's a two-way heter, men to woman, woman to man. Very good. Right? So that's why. So it's only saying two ways. So also Lakamei Ravidi Baravin, Amar Lahu Dardaki. So they came in front of Ravidi Baravin. He said, Dardaki, children. Right? Hachi Amar Rav Yudam Rav Yudam Rav set up a ferish like Huzaru Ksheris Li Nasi Lipsulim. Females that are kosher, right? Kosher Baskayan is perfectly allowed, perfectly mutter to marry somebody's passul, and that's it. Fine. So that's bottom line is that's what we come out with, that it's mutter. Yeah. So Shnias Midivrei Somim. So then the next case in the Mishnah was that the Shnias, the second level of Arayas, right, which is also Midrabanan. Fine. So Bomine B'nei Biri Mirav Sheshes, The Bnei Beiri asked the Shaila from Rav Sheshes. So again, so what do we say about the Shniya? The Shniya does not get the kesuba, right? We don't let her have the kesuba. Rishonos, regular arayas do get the kesuba. Shniyas don't get the kesuba, right? So the Gemara asks Shniya lebal v'loy Shniya leyavam. So let's say she's a Shniya to her husband, right? Meaning she was not allowed to marry her husband midrabanan. But if the husband would die, then to her brother-in-law, she's not a Shniya, right? Like we said, it's talking about where they're brothers from the father, not brothers from the mother. So she's not a Shniya to the yavam. So then yeshel kesuba yavam, is she entitled to the kesuba from the yavam or not? Meaning she's certainly not entitled to the kesuba from her husband because it's an illegal marriage midrabanan, which we'll see on Amud Beis, right? But what about if she's mutter to marry her brother-in-law? Would she get the kesuba from him? So what's the shaila? Kivan d'amar Mar. Since Mar said ksubasa al nichse ba'ila harishon, that the kesuba gets paid from the belongings of the first husband. Meaning, who's got to give this lady the kesuba? She had a husband, he died, and now he has a brother who's going to marry this woman. So who's responsible for her kesuba? So we said that the first husband's family comes from his Yerusha, is the kesuba. So Lesla, so since she doesn't have a kesuba, so the first husband's family doesn't have to pay anything. I don't know. We say kima de ilu lesla mirishan. But let's say the first husband would not have had any money. Tikinu la rabana misheni. The rabbanon made a takana. We had this way back when, like 40 blot ago, that the rabbanon made a takana that the kesuba should come from the sheni. So Isla, and he has, right? So I mean, she should get the kesuba because she's mutter to marry him. Again, the husband that she's married to, who died, was an assur midrabanan. So she's not supposed to get the kesuba from him. But his brother, she could be married to. The kesuba is really supposed to come from the first husband, not from the second husband. So, but she's not entitled to the kesuba from the first husband. Right? So the Gemara is asking, okay, so she's granted she's not entitled to the kesuba from the first husband, but maybe she'll get the kesuba from the second husband because she's allowed to be married to the second husband. Right? So maybe he should give the kesuba, just like we know that normally the first husband's supposed to pay the kesuba, but if he has no money, we go to the second husband. So the same thing here. If she can't get the kesuba from the first husband, not because he doesn't have the money in this case, because she's just not entitled to it, so then go to the second husband. So that's the shaila. Some of the Rosh Hashanah.
What's the second side? What's the svara? She already gave up on a kesuba as soon as she got married. The whole svara is that she shouldn't lose out.
Right.
She lechatchila lost out. Why should we give her a kesuba?
Well, she's losing out on knas.
Right? Yeah, but she knew that when she got married. They didn't read a kesuba under the kesuba.
So, okay, I hear.
Why should we give her a new kesuba? Why should the yavam lose out?
Right. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but because the bottom line is, it's no worse than if the first husband couldn't pay the kesuba because he was poor.
It is worse.
Why? Just because she knew that she wasn't getting the kesuba.
Yeah, she gave up on a kesuba. She's not losing anything.
First of all, who says she knew? Who says she knew?
They didn't read a kesuba under the chuppah.
What?
Whoever the
I don't know if it means that they didn't know. Whoever was not, that can't be the case. Otherwise, this guy can't be Masad the Kedushin to an Issa. They got married on their own. And he said, I'll give you a kesuba. And then the rabbis tell her, by the way, you ain't getting no kesuba.
But she didn't even know. When the guy died, she still didn't know.
I understood it that she didn't know. I don't know if I'm right. I have no idea if I'm right.
But Yaakov, if he goes ahead and is miyavim her, on the side that there's no kesuba, if he's miyavim her, he goes ahead and does the yibam. Is that a good yibam?
Yeah, I would think so. Why not?
So how would he be able to keep her at that point?
Without a kesuba?
Yeah.
Because based on the first husbands.
But there is no kesuba. Let's say there's
so you have to figure out how that works with the takana.
Isn't that the Gemara's seer? Like, I don't understand the Gemara's seer. The Gemara is saying if you would go ahead and be miyavimer, is the mechoyev kesuba.
Right.
Because the first baal is not. Because let's say the state of the first baal is not. If that's true, then what happens l'maisa?
Right. So somebody discusses it. I'm not remembering now. Somebody discusses that. What do you do with the takana in these cases? Right.
It's really the flip side of the same question. The whole purpose of the kesuba is to give her stability. She was willing to give up or she wasn't. If she wasn't, then the takana stands. But if she was, then there's no takana.
Right. You want to say that maybe he can go collect it from the estate from the first husband? Maybe.
The Gemara doesn't entertain that sad though.
Right. Doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like it. I hear. So anyway, so that's a Gemara Shaila. Some of the Sheshas Tinisu, we learned it. Ksubasa al nichse baila rishon. Her ksuba goes on the nechasim of the first husband. Bim haisa shniya lebal. Right? And if she was a shniya to the bal, afilu miyavam ein la. She does not get a ksuba even from the yavam. That's what that's the teretz. So she doesn't get it. So Gemara asks, "Mechlal dika the Islam miyavam," right? But it's mashma that there is a case where there is a ksuba from the yavam, right? So how do you understand that? If we said that it goes with the first husband's money, not the second. So Gemara answers, there's something missing from this braysa. So this is what it says: Ksubasa al nichse baila rishon. The ksuba really has to be paid for by the first husband, by the husband who died. Be less la merishon tkinu la misheni. And if the first husband has no money, so then we must sacken that the second one does it. Bim haisa shniya lebal afilu miyavam ein la. Then afilu miyavam ein la. And if the second husband, if the husband was a shniya, then she doesn't even get from the yavam. So you're right. I don't know, Akiva. I don't know what happens here because they could stay married, l'chara. And so what's with her kesuba? I'm not sure.
There was no takana of kesuba.
That must be. That's what you have to say. There was no takana.
If they say you don't get a kesuba, then there's no kesuba. There's no takana to have one.
Right. Yeah, fine. Okay, so let's see the next shayla. Yeah, so yesh lem mezainas and lem mezainas. Right, so these are deraisas, not shniyas. Right, so we said already they do get the kesuba. Right, deraisas get the kesuba, which we're going to see in a few lines. Shniyas, which is the rabbanon, do not get the kesuba. Fine, but the Gemara doesn't. The Mishnah doesn't talk about mezainas, right? That besides for the woman getting the kesuba, she only gets a kesuba on either the death of her husband or the get from her husband. But mezainas is that you have to feed her. He has to feed her the whole time. So if an almana marries a kohen gadol or a grusha chalutza marries a kohen hedjit, is she entitled to food or not? So Gemara says, "Hey Chidami, what's the case?" To say if it is that she's sitting under him. She's standing by having to go out, meaning they have to get divorced. How can you possibly entertain the thought that the husband has to feed her if he has to divorce her? I mean, they're not allowed to get married. It's Yisroel lav for a kohen to marry a grusha. They have to get divorced. So what can be your shaila whether the husband has to feed her? Of course he doesn't have to feed her. Right. So again, Amud he's there standing that he has to go out.
Maybe Cole's money doesn't divorce. He has to feed her.
No? She has to give the get, not her.
No, he has to give a get.
Right, so why is he getting out of feeding her?
Nobody's saying, but maybe they say.
See, Yaakov, if somebody all the money he makes he steals, does he still have to feed his wife? He's trying to give this money back to whoever he stole it from, but that's how he lives. He just has stolen money and he lives like that.
I don't know what the din would be then with the stolen money. Right? I don't know, but you're right. Maybe he should have to feed him feed her when they're waiting for the get. You got to wait for the rabbi to get home from shul or whatever, and she's hungry. I would
say if anything, as far as fakir, he should have to pay her $1 million an hour. If we want him to give her a get. Give her more than mezainis. Give her 5 times mezainis.
I mean, Kozman that he's waiting for the get.
Yeah, we want it's kaifin achir in this case. So do the kaifin. Don't make
by that same logic
less
every single time. What shayach is that logic could apply to every single time you want to be kaifin. So why don't you do it every single time?
That is sort of the
RCA. That's sort of what I'm saying, but that's not a riot to the seer. It's a riot to every seer. I'm not a riot. Every seer could have that. It's not specific to our case.
Right.
So it's not a smart to our case. Our case is different. It's not mitzad forcing him. It's mitzad the whole situation. We're not looking at it. We don't charge people according to the Gemara. But etzem, we never. The way to be kaifin is not by charging the guy money. Question is she have a right? Yeah. Not mitzad him, mitzad her. Mitzad him, we never force him to pay. That's just the way.
Making him pay less is an incentive to stay married.
Okay, we're going to see that. She's not going to want to be with him. That's what we're trying to do.
Okay, so we're going to see that. We're going to wait for him.
He's not going to want to be married to her if she's bothering him to give him his owners and he doesn't want to, and we don't force him to.
We got to wait for him at base to see that. Let's say either way, but the Gemara is saying so. If it's somewhere when they're still married, they have to go out. Mazinus Isla, she gets Mazinus? Definitely not. So like Medinas Hayam, which Rabban, maybe this is what you're saying. He went to Medinas Hayam, he went overseas. The loves of Achlan, she borrowed money to eat. She needed money. So what's the din? Mazaini Tanai Kesuba Ninu. Right, feeding is a tanai in the kesuba that he has to feed his wife. Mida isla kesuba. So since she gets a kesuba, isla mezayni, she also gets food. Meaning, she gets her kesuba, right? Which we're going to see in a minute why a derabanan gets a kesuba and a braysa does not. But she gets her kesuba. In the kesuba, no, the rabbanon does not get the kesuba.
The rabbanon does. I thought
the rabbanon does not. Yes,
it does.
Correct. Right. So we're saying, so she gets a kesuba, right? So again, this is the braysa. This case is the braysa. But the isla kesuba, isla mazayni. Since she gets a kesuba, in the kesubas that he has to feed her. Idilma kesuba de la mishkol meifak isla. The kesuba is only when she leaves the marriage, when she takes it and she leaves. Mazayni dilma ta'akav gabe lesla. But food, which might cause her to stay married to him, right? She can't get. Meaning, if you're going to feed her, she's going to say, let me stay into this marriage. You're going to throw me out onto the street. I know we're in an illegal marriage, right? But you're going to throw me out onto the street, right? So if you have to throw it out onto the street and you don't feed her, then she's going to go. But if you feed her, she's not going to want to go. So maybe you should not be able to feed her. Amar Leis, he said, Lesla, she does not get fed. Oh, about Tanya Yeshla. But we learned in a braysa that she does get fed. One answer is after the husband dies, meaning if for whatever reason the guy pushed off the get until after he died, then since she gets the kesuba, she also going to get fed after she dies, right? Because the din is that almana gets fed from the estate of the husband. Besides for getting the kesuba, she also gets fed. So the Gemara says that's one way of learning. Ista Amar, there are those that say, I don't know what the difference is between Ista Amar and Ikuda Amri, right? But Ista Amar Lay, like this is how it went down. Rabbi Yochanan said
Ista Amar is singular, Ikuda Amri is plural.
I'm saying that no, Ista Amar is also plural. No?
It's singular. The Amar who said.
I know, but I don't know.
There is the Amar who said. The Amri, the Yud is the plural.
Yeah, but I don't
think it's translated as some.
Yes, I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Either way, so it's the Amar Lay, Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Lazar, Tanya, I'm sorry, we learned that the braysa Yeshla. She gets the money. She gets fed. So Gemara says, she has to get divorced. So how could it be that she gets fed? Ella, Hatanya Yeshla. Right? Meaning, so she can have, meaning if she has to get divorced, we're going to say that she gets kesuba, not the mezainis. So Gemara answers, Kitanya hi lachar misa. When it says that she gets mezainis, that's only after he dies. After he dies, she gets mezainis. Fine. Tana Rabbanan. Amar l'kohen gadol grusha v'chalutza l'kohen hadjit yesh l'kesuba peiros mezainis belows. She gets the kesuba, she gets the peiros. Well, we said already that's what she comes into the marriage with belongings. She gets to take it back. Mezainis, she gets fed. Belows, and any clothing that gets worn out, she gets that back too. But what's fascinating is he psula, she became passul, Bevlada passul, and her kid becomes passul to marry Kohanim, the kaifin isolites, and we force him to get divorced. It's really wild. This is another one of these Yevamos backwards, that you would think it's backwards. You take a poll of anybody that's not learning Yevamos, or even those of us that are learning Yevamos, and I would say the opposite. Again, is an assur braysa for almana to marry Kohen Gadol, the grusha v'litzil Kohen Hedjit. She gets her kesuba, she gets the peiros, she gets everything, but her kid's passul, and she's passul, and she has to get divorced. Shniyas midivrei seifrim, but if it's only an assur d'Rabbanan, meaning a second level arayas, ein lo kesuba, she doesn't get her kesuba, loy peiros, loy mezainas, loy belois, she doesn't get any of that. But he kshera, she's kosher, v'vlada kosher, and her kid is kosher, v'kaifin isolaiti, but she also has to get divorced because they're be'issur. So again, the assur braysa, she gets the clean house. She gets everything financially, even though she loses her kids because they become passul. Assur d'Rabbanan, she gets nothing, and her kids are kosher, right? It's hard to understand. So what is the pshat? So now the Gemara is going to go through what the pshat is. So Amr of Shimon ben Elazar, why does an Amud the Kohen Gadol get the kesuba? Because they're both passul. Because of this marriage, the Kohen Gadol becomes a passul. He can no longer practice, and she becomes passul to marry a Kohen because she married somebody she wasn't allowed to. And any place that he's passul and she's passul on Talmud Beis now, Kansu Isaac kesuba. The Chachamim made a knas that she does not get the kesuba.
He can't practice as a kohen.
Yeah, he cannot pray. He becomes passul. He could still get truma. He can eat truma. No, can he get truma?
Not until he gets divorced and he makes a neder that he's not going to do it again.
No. He makes a neder from her. No, he's not going to. Right?
No,
we're going to have
anywhere.
Yeah, but anyways, so who gets the knas? Meaning when she's passul and he's passul, he gets the knas, not her, right? Because she's going to get the kesuba, right? So because the Kohen Gadol, now why does she not get the knas? Only he gets the knas, right? Because she's gonna want to get out of this marriage anyways. There's a lot of psychology into the mindset of women here in marriage in this next few lines, right? She's gonna want to get out of this marriage because this Kohen Gadol be upset at her that she caused him to become passul. So she's gonna want out of this marriage anyways because it's gonna be a miserable marriage. Now I don't know what the Kohen Gadol was thinking in the first place, right? There's going to be fights. Rashi says because she made him passul, there's going to be fights, right?
Well, the stomach, this is towards the end of the second. The only chance that this could possibly happen is at the end of the second base of Mikdash. So he bought his way in. He knew no better. As soon as he got married to her, now he falls apart.
I mean, that's an interesting shot. That's an interesting shot. Okay, but that's one way. So by the deraisa, we're knasing him. And how come she does not have a kesuba if it's shnias? Because in that case, they're both still kosher because it's only shnias. And anytime that he's kosher and she's kosher, kansu oisa kesuba, then she gets the knas and she doesn't get the kesuba, right? Because there's not going to be any stress because nobody became passul, and she's going to want to stay married. So since she's going to want to stay married, we are going to knas her. She's not getting a kesuba, right? Rebbe Yomer, that's the first shot.
Gershon, that's a good shot. I mean, I thought of that, but it just shows you how far chutzpah yazgan now that Bennett can make a government with Arabs. It's unbelievable. It's way bigger chutzpah than this Michigan Kohen. It's unbelievable.
I hear it.
Especially we talk about politics today. He's in bed with the Arabs.
That's right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Anyways, fine. So that's one shot. Rebbe Yomer, halal divrei Torah v'divrei Torah and sichon chizik. These are divrei Torah. I can't say I understand this pshat in the Gemara either. They're divrei Torah, and divrei Torah doesn't need chizik, meaning things from divrei Torah, you're going to keep the halacha. He says you're going to keep the halacha. We don't need chizik, and we don't need to tell her not to get the kesuba. But I don't understand. They didn't listen to the divrei Torah. What do you mean they don't need divrei chizik? They didn't listen to the divrei Torah, right?
That's the point. The chizik's not going to do anything. They knew it was an assur braysa. They didn't listen. So chizik's going to make any difference? By a drabanan, the reason they were oivers, they say, oh, it's only a drabanan. So you make it stronger.
But here it didn't work anyways, so it should have needed chizik. There should be no kesuba here.
Chizik won't work. That's the point.
I understand. So that means you just let him have the kesuba anyways.
No, but there's no reason to make a knas. It doesn't help. The knas doesn't help. The knas is for a purpose. The purpose is meaningless.
Okay, but I'm saying if you're already knasing the shni, okay, I hear. So that's one. Meaning halalu is divrei Torah. Haman al kohen gadol grusha v'chalutza kohenet is divrei Torah, doesn't need chizik. Halalu divrei seifrim, but the shniyas is midrabanan, but divrei seifrim tzrichen chizik. Things that are rabbanan need chizik to make sure that people are not over on them. Right? We had this a few times. So people don't care so much about the rabbanan, so therefore they want to make sure that they warn her, right? You don't marry this guy. You marry this guy, he's not going to have to give you a kesuba. Yeah,
it could be. When it says divrei Torah ain't chizik on a mass scale.
Yeah, that's what you have to say. It's on a mass scale. That's true.
But divrei Rabbanan on a mass scale.
That's a good teretz. That's a good teretz, right? It's on a mass. It's talking about on a mass, but it's interesting that here it didn't work. Here they needed chizik.
This person didn't listen. But
right. So and he's gaining because of it.
Oh, right. No, we don't want to make a gzeira on a mass scale for one guy who was a bomb.
Good, but so that's what comes out, that the guy didn't listen and he got knast. He didn't get knast. Okay.
She's gay. He's losing. He has to pay the kesuba.
I'm saying she is not getting knast. Either way, one of them is going to get knast and one is not.
So here, the way Rashi put it at the beginning, we make a knas on him to give a kesuba.
Yeah. Which
seems to be not like this Gemara.
Yeah. That's one shot. So that's another shot. That's a second shot. And third shot, margila vizu he margilsa. This one here is he tried to convince her to get married, meaning the man is convincing the woman. That's by the braysa, right? And by Zuhi Margil here by the Drabanan, she's the one that's convincing him. So that's why by the braysa he has to pay the kesuba. By the shniyas, she has to pay the kesuba. Meaning why? Why is he convincing her? So Rashi says, because he has no loss. Meaning she's not going to lose anything. Yeah. So since she
wants to get married more than him.
Correct. So Rashi says a woman wants to get married more than a man. Anybody agree with that? Right? So
Rashi, no, but the Kohen Gadol has to be married. He has to get married.
What?
The Kohen Gadol has to get married.
Yeah, but not to Amana.
Nobody has to get married.
Not to Issa.
What? Yeah,
but you're all saying that a woman wants to get married more than, maybe more than the average man, but the Kohen Gadol to get all the perks, to wear those fancy coats, he has to be married.
Right. So meaning by the Kohen Gadol, it can't possibly be a woman is going to want to marry a Kohen Gadol because it's going to mess her up and her kids. So it has to be that he convinced her. So therefore, he has to pay the kesuba. By the Rabbanon, nothing's going to happen to her. So she'll convince him.
Yeah, but I didn't understand it. He still has to do a Maisa Kedusha, not her. He has to do the Maisa.
Correct, but he convinced her.
So it's good. He convinced us. I mean, what do you mean? The guy has a choice. He's still doing the Maisa, not her.
That's true, but it's where again, this is all knossos here. This is not anything more than knas.
Yeah, but you're differentiating there.
Yeah, because we're trying to figure out why in one place he gets the knas and one place she gets the knas. So it's about who convinced. That's it. At the end of the day, it takes two to tango. It takes two to tango. That's the bottom line.
Why is who convinced enough Gemina?
because that's we want to know who the one should get a knas. So let's see. Davar acher, man katoniga. Who said the davar acher? Again, so there's really three pshatim that we said here. One is that the braysa gets the knas, right? Because how do we say it again? Because the braysa, that's the second shot. The first shot is because I'm forgetting already. Why the first one get the because we want her to get married to somebody else, right? We want her to get the kesuba to get out. She doesn't have, meaning if we give her the kesuba, she won't mind getting divorced. But if she doesn't get a kesuba, then she's not going to have a problem with it. That was the first teretz. Then we said, well, one is the braysa, one is the rabbanon. Then we said a third teretz, that one is she convinced him to get married. That's by the rabbanon, she convinces him, so she gets the knas. And by the braysa, he convinced her. So Gemara says, davar acher man katoniga. Who said the davar acher, the second shot? So Igadam Rav Shimon ben Elazar, who said the first shot, who said that we want to give her the kesuba that she leaves. Katonila umatam ka'omar, and he's really just saying, meaning the third reason the Gemara is saying is not a third reason. It's a explanation of the first two reasons. One Rav Shimon ben Elazar and one Rebbe. Meaning, matam ka'omar. The Gemara is explaining what is the reason. Matam amru hu passul v'hi psula kanso isek kesuba. Why is it that we said that when he's passul and she's passul, meaning by almana l'kayin gadol, grusha v'chalutz l'kayin hedyot, we give him the knas and he has to give the kesuba, neshehu margila, because he is going to convince her to get married. Umatam hu kosher v'hi ksheira kanso isek kesuba. And how come when they're both kosher, meaning they're shnius, so they knast her the kesuba and she doesn't get it? Neshehi margilsa, because she convinced him, because there's no loss for her. Her kids are not becoming passul.
Why does it say davar acher if it's just an explanation of a previous one?
You mean, why does it say it as a davar acher?
Yeah, it's a davar acher. It's not mashma that it's going back. It's explaining the first one.
Yeah, it doesn't fit. You're right. It does not fit into the terminology, the standard terminology of davar acher. You're right. But that's what it's saying, that's what it means by davar acher, meaning that is the pshat. Yeah, I hear. I don't have a good teretz for that.
What was that, Kasha?
Meaning that doesn't fit into the word davar acher. Davar acher means another pshat. Here it doesn't mean another. Now we're saying it doesn't mean another pshat. It's explaining the first shita. Right? Fine. Ikuda Amar, see again, Ikuda Amar. It's like it's not Ikuda Amri. Ikuda Amar, Rebbe Katani. Let's go according to Rebbe. The chalutza kakashli. And Rebbe had a question from chalutza, right? Chalutza is the rabbanon. But chalutza the rabbanon, visla kesuba. A chalutza is only also the rabbanon because of a grusha, right? Really, from the Torah, only grusha is also to a kohen. Chalutza is mutter. The Rabbanan, because of the similarities between a chalutza and a grusha, they said that the kohen can't marry her. Right? Chalutza the Rabbanan, ve'isla kesuba, and she gets the kesuba. Right? Why? If it's a Rabbanan, she shouldn't get the kesuba. So that's why he went back and said, even the passul with the Rabbanan, since it's passul with the Rabbanan, not the braysa, zeu margila, he is going to convince her. Bezu he margiltai. And she will, but when it's not chalutza, then she's going to convince him, right? So basically, he had a kasha from chalutza, and he said, no, so it has to do with who's going to convince who. It happens to be an interesting thing because zehu, it really should be two words here. Zehu, meaning normally zehu means this. That's what it looks like it means here. It's not here. It should be. You see, it says zuhi. Right, so it should also be zehu as two different words. That's the way Rashi has it. Yeah, Rashi has it as zehu, not zehu as one. Okay, so fine. Now, what's the practical difference between Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Elazar? Again, Rav Shimon ben Elazar is saying that it's a braysa. We're giving him a knas when they're both passul. Right, and he gets the knas when they're both passul. She gets the knas when they're both kosher. And And Rebbe says it has to do with the Raisa D'Rabbanan. So what's the practical difference? So Amar of Kistam Mamzeres and Nasila Yisroel. Mamzeres and Nasila Yisroel Ikabenayu. Mandam with the Raisa, Hanami the Raisa, Mamzeres and Nasina, right? That's an Issa the Raisa. So if that they're married, so then therefore there's going to be a ksuba. He has to pay the ksuba. And Mandam Rabnei Shu Margila, Hahi Margalale here. And if you're going to say because he's the one that's being Margala, Hahi Margalale here, she's going to be the one to convince him. Right? Because since she's a mamzeres, she's got no loss. What's her loss? She got nothing to lose by marrying this guy. Right? So therefore, she would convince him, so therefore she doesn't get the ksuba. Fine. But now the Gemara is going to go through all these shitas. Rabbi Lazar, the Amar, Harei Zeh Eved Mamzer, that there's no way to ever make a kid a mamzer mutter. Right, I'm sorry. I should have said that in the previous teretz. There is the way lady doesn't take a loss because she knows that she could get her kids to be cleared by marriage. Remember we said that the mamzer can marry a shivcha and then they could have a kid, and that kid is an eved, and then you free the eved, and then the kid's a kosher kid, right? So she knows she could do that, so she doesn't mind getting married. Okay, but Rabbi Eliezer, the Amar Areza Eved Mamzer, he says the shtick doesn't work to clear a mamzer or to clear a mamzer's kid, right? He says the kid then has the status of an Eved and a mamzer. She's not going to want to marry this guy, so why should she pay it? Why should she not get the kesuba? He has a difference. Right? Somebody who's remarrying his wife after she married somebody else would be the difference. Why? Because Mandam Daraisa, the one that says Daraisa, right? So then Hanami Daraisa, so it's a Daraisa, and therefore she gets the kesuba. Mandam Neshu Margila, right? If the one that says the reason is because he's going to make her convince her, he Margalale. Here she's going to be Margalim because she has nothing to lose. The kids are not mamzerim. When she goes back to her original husband after she married somebody else, the kids are not mamzerim. So why wouldn't she convince the guy to do an issa? So therefore, she gets the knas. Okay, then we're asking Rabbi Kiva, the Amar Yesh Mamzer Mechayve Lavin, and according to Rabbi Kiva, who says that there is a mamzer from Chayve Lavin. She's not going to want, according to Rabbi Kiva, she's not going to want to get married to him because her kids are going to be mamzerim. So then, how do you have a pshat? It's a ba'ula to a kohen gadol. She's not married, meaning she's a ba'ula, but she's not an almana and she's not a grusha. Right? She's just a ba'ula. So mandam or daraisa, the one that says that that's also daraisa, hanami daraisa, so it's daraisa. So therefore, she gets a kesuba. But the one that says that it's the problem would be he would not pay kesuba if I'm saying he would pay a kesuba if he convinces her. Here she's going to convince him because what's her loss, right? She's not. She's just a beula. She's not a grusha or an almana, right? So then she would get the knas. Fine. That there is a chalal from chayve yaseh. Again, it's a mitzvah asay for a kohen gadol to marry a pasula. There's no isser for him to marry a beula. It's just a mitzvah for him to marry a pasula. So if you go with the shitas that say, like Rabbi Lazar and Yaakov, who says that a chalal, that also makes chalal, so then she's not going to want to get married to him because she's going to become a chalal, and so will her kids. So the difference between them would be if somebody goes and, right, his wife's a saita, so they're on the way to Yerushalayim that she should drink the drink. So they're not allowed to be together. But then he goes and he's together with her. Right? So Mando, so that's the difference. That's the difference. Mando, Daraisa, Hanami Daraisa. The one that says it's Issa Daraisa, so this is also Issa Daraisa. A husband is not allowed to be with his wife when she's a suffix saita. And because he's going to make her try and convince her. Here, she's going to try because she has no loss. Right? She doesn't become assur, so therefore she would not get the kesuba. Even if the Baal is on the way to give her the drink, and he sleeps with her on the way, that makes her to a zaina. According to him, she's not going to want to get married to him because she knows if she gets married to him, she has a din zaina, and then she becomes passul. Obviously, she knows that she was not mezana. she has to take the drink because her husband suspects her, right? So the difference between them is a saita vadai, which is certainly also midaraisa for the husband, just like the same thing as a machzir grushasa is also for the husband. So the saita vadai is the difference between them, right? So according to Rav Shimon bar Elazar, right, she loses the kesuba because she would convince him because she has nothing to lose. And according to Rabbi, that it's an issa daraisa, he would have to pay the kesuba. So I think we have 5 different terutzim of the difference between the reasons why an issa daraisa, the husband has to pay the kesuba, and if it's an issa darabanan, the wife has to pay the kesuba. That's the main thing to take out from this whole daf, which is a very interesting thing, that when the marriage is an issa daraisa, you got to take, he pays the kesuba. When it's an issa darabanan, he does not have to pay the kesuba. Okay, we can't start the next mission because it's a whole sugya. So okay, we'll stop here. The next couple of nights, Be'ez Hashem, we got to go, I think, a little bit longer to make up because we got the 3-day Yom Tov. So we'll try and figure that out. All right. Have a good night, everybody. And a good Chodesh. Yeah.
What do you want?
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to run tomorrow, so.
I forget it. I wanted to ask a question on the Gemara. You want to ask the Rabbi Kiva. The Rabbi Kiva Dama Yesh Mamzim Chayve Lavin. That kasha, Halei Margulale. She won't cause him. We're talking about a mamzeres to a Yisroel. Her kids are anyway going to be mamzerim.
Which kids?
Rashi bavarns that.
Which case are you talking about?
Rashi bavarns it. You're going to save the grandchild because you're going to marry to a shivcha, and then you're going to go be matar according to Rav Tarfon. So she's going to save the grandchild. She wants to be with Yisroel. Yisroel's better than Mamzer.
What?
Which
Rashi
case
speaks about it.
Which case are you going on?
Rashi 2 cases before says that. How does that help for Rabbi Kiva? What's the Gemara asking on Rabbi Kiva? One is only asking on Machzir Grushasai, Mishanisis?
Yeah.
If Rabbi Kiva,
because he holds
Rabbi Kiva has to hold like Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer, sorry.
Yeah.
If Rabbi Kiva holds like Rabbi Eliezer and you have to say Machzir Grushasai, then there's a kash. But according to Rabbi Kiva, we could go back to Mamzeres Li Yisrael. Mamzeres and Asina Li Yisrael.
Right. I'm going to run down my you. Mr. Akiva knows it better than me. What? Oh, he left already. All right. Good night.
Good night.